Hey everybody! Welcome back to the library for yet another story time. Today we have a lovely story about a real life piano teacher named Mr. Mergler, and the story is called Mr. Mergler, Beethoven, and Me. It's written by David Gutnick, illustrated by Matilda Cinq-Mars, and it is published by Second Story Press, read with permission from Access Copyright on behalf of the publisher. Not long after my family arrived from China, I went to the park with my father, whom I call Baba. Lots of people went there to play, enjoy the flowers, and have picnics. That's where I rode my bike, and one special summer morning, it is where I met someone I will always remember. That Saturday, Baba got so far behind me that I stopped pedaling to let him catch up. I laid my bike down next to a bench where an old gentleman was reading. I went over to the swings and started pumping higher and higher. From the swing, I watched Baba arrive. He sat next to the old man, and pretty soon they were talking. Just as I got as high as the treetops, Baba called me to come over to talk to him. I dug my heels in the dirt to stop the swing and ran to the bench. "Say hello to my new friend," Baba said. "This is Mr. Daniel Mergler." "I am pleased to meet you," I said. My father beamed. He was very proud of my English. Mr. Mergler shook my hand. Then he pointed past a row of trees. "I live nearby, on the other side of the park. I have been teaching piano lessons there for more than 50 years. His voice was so soft I had to lean forward to hear him. "You see, my mother was a pianist. I used to watch her play, and she looked so happy that it made me happy too. She taught me piano, and now I teach others." "Did you teach your own children to play?" I asked. Mr. Mergler laughed. "I have taught hundreds of students, little ones, big ones. They are my children, my own musical family. I have all their pictures on a wall near my piano." "My daughter plays the piano at our church," Baba told him. "She taught herself." "Wonderful." Mr. Mergler smiled at me. "Perhaps you should take lessons." I looked down at my shoes. Baba worked hard, and we had everything we needed, but I knew there was no extra money for piano lessons. For a minute, no one said anything, and then Mr. Mergler changed the subject. "Do you have a favorite song you could sing for me?" "Yes," I said, and before I knew it, I was crying, "Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee." While I sang, Mr. Mergler closed his eyes and smiled. He looked so happy that it made me happy too. When I was finished, Mr. Mergler took a pen and a piece of paper from his pocket. "This is my address," he said to my father. "I would like to teach her to play the piano. Something tells me she understands the magic that music can bring to her life. If she does, that is all the payment I will need." I couldn't believe my ears. Baba smiled, and his eyes shone as he bowed to Mr. Mergler. And that is how I became a member of Mr. Mergler's musical family. "Who is that?" I asked, pointing to the sculpted head of an angry-looking man with wild hair. Did I skip a page? I skipped a page. The next Sunday, my mother and I walked across the park to Mr. Mergler's studio. The room was dim and cluttered with stacks of books and sheet music. It was as if all the notes in the world were waiting for someone to bring them to life. Near a wall covered with photos stood a large piano. Its ivory keys glowed in the soft light. "Who is that?" I asked, pointing to the sculpted head of an angry-looking man with wild hair. "That is Ludwig van Beethoven, a wonderful composer. My aunt gave the bust to me for my 9th birthday, and it has sat on my piano ever since. Mr. Mergler chuckled. Beethoven went deaf, but I'm sure he still knows when the piano is played well. When I played with no mistakes, Mr. Mergler gave me a gold star. One day, he said, you will shine more brightly than all these little stars. I snuck a look at Ludwig van Beethoven. Was it my imagination, or did he look a little more friendly? My fingers began to fly, and so did my lessons. Mr. Mergler once told me, when you are here, seconds, minutes, and hours are not part of the outside world. In this room, we get lost in our music until time itself stands still. It's like magic, I thought. We make everything else disappear. Mr. Mergler and I had 26 magical lessons together. Then one morning at breakfast, my parents were very quiet. I tried not to worry. Instead, I listened to the new piece of music that was playing in my head. But when I noticed tears in Mama's eyes, I knew something was terribly wrong. Darling, she said, Mr. Mergler is very sick. The music disappeared. Seconds marched past on the kitchen clock. Mama and Baba hugged me and took me into the living room. Ludwig van Beethoven was sitting on our piano, and beside him was an envelope with my name on the front. When I opened it, a few gold stars fell to the floor. I read the note. To my star pupil, it is so hard to say goodbye, but I am weak and I can't teach anymore. Here is the phone number of a new teacher. I couldn't leave you without one. He is looking forward to meeting you. I have given small gifts to many of my children, but you were my best student. Beethoven must come to you. Please keep him on the piano like I did all my life. He's not so cranky when he is close to good music. I love you very much. Remember me always. Your teacher, Mr. Mergler. There have been a few changes since Mr. Mergler died last year. I have grown taller. I have a new teacher, and I've learned to play more difficult compositions. But some things haven't changed. Time still disappears when I practice, and Beethoven still sits on my piano. You heard the music that time, didn't you? I whisper when I have played a piece perfectly. I hope Mr. Mergler heard it too. And that's the end of the book.